Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of the cEDH cast. Today, we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be breaking down a single card that sees play in competitive Commander cEDH and talk about the different decks that are playing it, the different ways people play the card, how it's fallen in and out of favor, and generally just the type of information you want to know about a single card in cEDH. Today, I have with me a well-known deck brewer, content creator, meme artist, Altun. Hello, Altun.
Hello, how's it going today, Brandon?
Good. I just got off work and now I get to talk about Magic, which is a lot of fun.
It's the best part of life.
Probably, sadly. So today we're talking about a card that I kind of got you on a few weeks ago, right?
I just started tinkering around with it myself a few weeks ago. So I've known about the combo and the availability of the card, but I've just haven't hopped on.
Yeah, so I guess we should say what the card is. So it's Final Fortune. So I'm going to read what Final Fortune does, and then we can kind of talk about how it's used. So Final Fortune is an instant for red. It says you take an extra turn, so it's like an instant speed time walk. But at the end step of that extra turn, you lose the game. So the way you're using it, Altun, is you're using it as part of a Spellseeker combo. Do you want to explain that?
So I'm using it in a Spellseeker combo. I believe it was Deke that came up with it. At least he's the one that I had known and was brought to attention from. Him and Hire brought it to me. So you play Spellseeker, you grab Ephemerate, you get to Ephemerate your Spellseeker, and then you grab Final Fortune. On that Final Fortune, your next upkeep, Ephemerate will trigger again, hitting Spellseeker, which will allow you to go grab Enlightened Tutor. Still on your upkeep, you get to Enlightened Tutor for Underworld Breach. And then with Underworld Breach, you get to recast Ephemerate to grab Brain Freeze again, and then you get to Enlightened Tutor for LED, and then Brain Freeze, and then proceed to Brain Freeze LED loop with Breach.
Yep. Yeah, so it's pretty powerful. It's especially good in decks that are already playing, Brain Freeze, Spellseeker, Underworld Breach, LED, and Enlightened Tutor. If you're already playing those cards, the combo is pretty powerful, right?
Yeah, it's really good with Jeskai Breach decks, just in general. I'm actually really liking it here, especially because with addition of green, Spellseeker gets turned on more with Neoform. So you can Neoform a Thrasios into it. You can grab a Neoform off Spellseeker. It just has more versatility.
Yeah, so you're playing it in a Thrasios Bruce Evolution deck, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can also Eldritch Evolution a Dork for your Spellseeker, which is pretty powerful. That's kind of insane. So another common combo with Final Fortune is Isochron Scepter, and the main deck we see that combo in is in Obeka. So if you follow Nathan on Twitter, Nathan Chef Deadpool, the Hermit Druid, he is a big fan of Obeka. He likes big stompy women, and Obeka definitely falls into that category. Obeka says it's a legendary creature for 1 black, red, blue. Tap. Whichever player's turn it is may end the turn if they choose. So that's already very powerful with Final Fortune as just a value piece. It's like a 2-minute time walk with Obeka. With Isochron Scepter, you can actually cast Final Fortune every turn and then end the turn in response to the trigger, so you never lose, which is obviously very powerful. It replaces... It's like Obeka is like an outlet for your Isochron Scepter Dramatic Reversal combo, but instead of Dramatic Reversal, you have this 2-mana time walk. Additionally, there's 2 other effects like Final Fortune that are sorceries, Warrior's Oath and Last Chance.
Yeah.
Both of those effects also kill you during the end step. Obeka also turns those into just time walks. An interesting thing about Obeka is that you can play Obeka, then play the time walk effect, go to your next turn, and then Obeka has haste effectively, which is really cool. So it's actually very efficient in terms of just sequencing. This combo is probably less popular because it's kind of limited to just a couple decks. Decks that can tutor out artifacts really efficiently because there's an artifact called Sundial of the Infinite, which does a very similar effect to a Becca. Yeah, have you played against any decks like this before, Alton?
I've played against it once, and I did not win that game. It was the first time I saw the deck. It was actually super interesting to see. That card is surprisingly super strong itself, Obeka, but Final Fortune is just like what makes that even better, in my opinion.
Yeah,
It's what keeps it with Cass.
Another thing you can do in Obeka that's unique is you can play Underworld Breach and Time Walk effects, so that if you end the turn in response to the Final Fortune and like kill yourself ability and the Underworld Breach ability, you, as long as you can put 3 new cards in your graveyard each turn, which is not that hard, especially if you have like a wheel or something, you can actually just take infinite turns. So that's pretty unique and powerful too.
That's super good. Just play like Tomb Scour or something like that.
Yeah, or Brain Freeze. Brain Freeze is
Brain Freeze, yeah, classic.
Yeah. So,
I really like the card in most. Like, we keep going back to this Final Fortune, but it layers really well with Breach decks. That's just a common denominator there.
Yeah. So the last way that I commonly see Final Fortune used is it's kind of a combo piece if you think of it. It's if you have 2 red mana up after you play your Necropotence, you can Necro for your life total effectively, see the top 40-ish cards of your deck, and then cast a Final Fortune, discard to the final 7, and then try to win on that last turn. If you're like me and you're playing Corvold, it lets you play a second copy of Crop Rotation effectively, where Crop Rotation Finding Emergence Zone does basically the same thing in a deck like Corvold. So Final Fortune lets you really aggressively... Yeah, Final Fortune lets you really aggressively Necro. It turns Necro into like a 1-card win con, effectively.
Yeah,
the math works out.
Ad Naus as well becomes even better.
Yeah, it works out that even if you have no mana up, there's like I think we did the math, it was like a 30% chance that you win the game, even if you have no mana up, just from like Simian Spirit Guides and other rituals. But if you have mana up, it becomes way more consistent, because now you can like Vampiric Tutor. It's like possible that you go Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, another ritual effect, then you play Vampiric Tutor, you cycle Unearth to draw, Crop Rotation or Final Fortune, and then you play those cards and you win. So it's really interesting.
The card itself is just a threat as well, because it's an instant that says you take an extra turn after this turn. So you get the cheat turn order, which has been super fun to do in any cEDH game. Oh, this guy's going to untap and win. Well, I'm going to untap before him and try to stop, like, do something. Or or just win on before he gets to go. It's almost, like you said, a second emergence zone.
Yeah. So I think one thing people forget about Final Fortune is that it doesn't you don't get the extra turn after your turn. It's right now. So if you play, I'm just trying to be clear, if you play a Final Fortune during one of your opponent's turns, you get to slip yourself into turn order and get a turn before the next player does, which is obviously very useful in in a metagame where maybe you're directly after the control player in turn order. And so, you can't always just go for it right after the control player untaps. So by being able to hold up this Final Fortune, let the 2 players after you go for it on their turns, drain each other of interaction, make sure that you don't lose, but hold up this Final Fortune, then cast Final Fortune, go for it on your turn. That's super powerful, and I have done that. Usually Corvold just wants to jam it, but there have been games where I've had the Final Fortune and been like, oh, I just die if I don't win here, so I might as well just go for it, and then I do get there. So.
Yeah, it's I've been able to do that with Spellseeker too. I'll just play Spellseeker, grab Ephemerate, and both Ephemerate and Final Fortune are instants, so I can literally just interrupt an interaction and try to take a turn before the next person gets to go.
Yeah, it's really scary playing against your deck when you Spellseeker for Ephemerate, because hey, if we go too hard on interacting with this value piece, we might just lose to the combo, which is really scary. It basically means that once you have an Ephemerate in hand, white, red, red represents the win.
Yeah, which is terrifying because Boros is normally not going to be good at Magic.
Yeah, I mean, even just like the fact that you get to basically, it's not like Flash where you can win on the stack, but it is like Flash in that it like forces the table to respect you, which is really scary. And not a lot of decks can do that just for like, one, just for 3 mana instant speed.
Yeah, it opens up more one card win conditions. So we had like Intuition as a super strong interaction or one card combo card that assembles Breach, but now with Seeker and Final Fortune, you get to assemble that as well.
Yeah. So, what have you found in your testing of your new list? I'd like to kind of go in deep on the decks that you and I know about. In your testing with Final Fortune, how has it affected the way that you play the deck and the way that people around you have to respect your deck?
So I traditionally play a tempo style as is, and this just completely supports that style. I like the instant speed interaction, especially playing with the Spellseekers. They will make fun of me for sandbagging and sandbagging, but this card just is like, I'm not sandbagging anymore. I'm going to win the game if I cast this card.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. And the crazy thing about Ephemerate is that if you do it like at your end step before your turn, you don't even need to find Final Fortune. You can just find like a miscast, right? Like,
yeah,
isn't that crazy? That works.
Yeah, and it also layers with Dockside decks too, because you just get to go play Dockside, Ephemerate, Final Fortune. You're gonna net a crazy amount of mana, and if you're playing like Worldly Tutor, so what you can do is you can Ephemerate Dockside, and then Final Fortune with the Worldly Tutor, and draw your Emil or Baron or Team your Sabretooth, whatever you're playing there as well.
Yeah, so it actually doubles like in your deck because you have access to green. You don't exclusively have to always find the enlightened tutor. You can just find the worldly tutor and go for it that way. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it opens a lot more lines that just haven't been available, especially in Sand Black. It turns my two like top deck tutors a little more into demonic tutor, even though it's not as great, but it puts those non-black tutors a little bit closer.
I think the cool thing, at least for me looking from the outside in, is it makes all of your creature tutors, especially the ones that put cards on the battlefield, way scarier. Because it at any point like a neoform with like 5 mana up, I'm not sure exactly. It's white, red. Is it just white, red the first turn? I forget exactly how many it is.
So you go Spellseeker, so you need to put the Spellseeker into play, and then you need to have white, red remaining on that turn. Yeah.
Yeah. So like with a neoform in the stack, if you have 3 mana up, I have to like be extremely respectful of that, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's like 5 mana or 6 mana if you're playing the Seeker first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So is that most of what you have to say about Final Fortune in your current list, or is there anything spicy you're working on using it, or
mostly just trying it as a little bit more utility? So there's especially in layered combo decks. So like with Ad Nauseam decks, my deck. So in my list in particular, I can be really, really close to winning. I just need that one more turn, and that's where Final Fortune's I'm gonna try to utilize it more. Sometimes I'm just stopped and I'll have like 2 remaining mana, but I need that 3rd mana to like so untapping will win me the game.
It's a ritual in a lot of decks. It is a ritual and a draw spell and an extra combat step, and all those things can be really valuable.
Yeah, it's exploration but much better.
Yeah. So I guess moving to Corval, this is the deck that I have the most experience playing Final Fortune. So I've been playing. I added it to Corval very early on because I felt like it was super powerful with the Necropotence, which ended up being one of the more powerful draw engines in the deck. And playing Corval, I found that red is actually pretty easy to make. We have cards like Tinderwall and Dockside that filter our mana pretty easily. So I've actually been able to cast it pretty consistently, and there are a lot of games where, you know, that extra turn is enough to win the game. I will say Final Fortune is probably the card that like kills me the most, in that I usually sequence incorrectly when I use it. I find a lot of the time, like I'll have a Mana Crypt or something in play, and I'll like Necro for just enough that I died on my Mana Crypt, which is frustrating. And I've definitely improved, my sequencing in that regard. But it is something I kind of would give a warning to people who want to use Final Fortune aggressively.
It definitely rewards good play. It rewards really good play, but it punishes super hard.
Yeah, I've killed myself with my Mana Crypt with Final Fortune more than I've died to Final Fortune in the end step. I've had a couple games where like it meant that I couldn't reanimate my Dockside or something because I chose the 1 mana reanimate over the 2 mana reanimate, not thinking about what if I lose the Crypt Flip, or maybe I have a Vampire Tutor that I plan on using, just things like that. So that's something I would warn about. In terms of using the card like a combo way, with Necropotence, I found that it's very consistent and very powerful. It turns out people don't respect Necropotence as like a win con yet. I think that'll change as like people keep testing with Final Fortune, because I feel like people are really, really in this year have really figured out how good it is. But people don't, in my experience, like they'll let Necropotence resolve, not realizing that like if I'm tapped out, it doesn't mean I'm actually tapped out. Like I might draw Simian Spirit Guide and a Pyroblast, or I might draw, Elvish Spirit Guide and a Crop Rotation, right?
Yeah, so just like having out a Wild Cantor or Tinderwall, like people forget about those.
Yeah, it works. Or even if I just have the Tinderwall, they will forget that, hey, I have this like free interaction in my deck, or free mana in my deck that makes this really interesting. So yeah, it's have you played against any decks that use Final Fortune with Necropotence?
I have not. Most of the decks I've actually seen have been cutting Necropotence, which with Final Fortune I think is wrong. They are the mana is super rough for both of them. Triple black and the double red is fairly hard to do.
That's definitely true.
But if you're playing you just gotta think of it this way: if you're playing a Dockside, you're gonna have and it makes 5 mana. You have it right there.
I also think that something I learned from Shaper, just because Shaper really enjoys Necropotence and CST, is that a lot of the time you can actually tutor up the ritual, right? So like I've had hands where I had a hand the other day that was exactly this. It was 2 lands, a Tinderwall, a Necropotence, and a Vampire Tutor. And so what I did is I turn 1 held up mana, I Vamp Tutored for Dark Ritual, go to my second turn, play my land, play Dark Ritual, Necropotence, land, Tinderwall. I won that game.
That's disgusting.
Because I drew into Final Fortune, and I drew 30 something cards. So that's definitely something that the deck is capable of doing, and it's one of the reasons I think Necropotence is so good right now, is because with the invention of Emergence Zone and people being able to finally pay red consistently and black consistently in the same deck, which was not always the case. That was actually a pretty big deal at one point. I think that this ability, this archetype, this card, this is like the right time for it,
Yeah, it also makes other new cards. So Jessica's Will is one of the most popular, or not the most popular right now, but it's like right there with wanting to be playable, especially with Rog decks, Thrasios decks, those cheap commander decks. Having a Jessica's Will, if you hit it a Final Fortune off the top and make that mana, that's gonna be a very strong Jessica's Will.
Oh yeah, especially like it's one of the reasons I'm on Jessica's Will is because it's very possible that I pay 3 mana for Jessica's Will instead of playing Corvold. I leave Black Green up. I hit like a Dockside or I hit a Final Fortune, and then I use the rest of the mana to play Corvold. Go to my next turn, I untap. Now I have tons of mana, have a Corvold in play, and I can start to dig, try to find a game.
Yeah.
Jessica's Will is very powerful.
Jessica's Will, I think like your best hits off of Jessica's Will are going to be like Underworld Breach, Dockside, and I believe Final Fortune will be that other top third slot of things you want to hit because of the red mana restriction.
Yeah, and people have been testing like cards like Mizzix's Mastery, and I definitely think there's like something interesting there because you can always just recast your Jessica's Will. But I think that you do need cards that are hyper impactful, like every time you flip them off Jessica's Will, and Final Fortune is absolutely one of those cards, you know?
Yeah. Because you're already going to have a commander out if you're doing it. If you're playing Jessica's Will, you're going to have a commander. And typically those commanders are going to be Thrasios, they're going to be Timna, they're going to be Rog, even the new Jessica's herself. And like you're going to have insane value by playing it, and then just hitting almost anything, especially one of those three cards, is going to be huge.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jessica's Will and Final Fortune being in the same deck for sure. All right, and we already talked a bit about Obeka. I think you and I personally don't have a lot to add to that, but I will say, you know, Time Walk's busted, right?
I think that's the best deck personally for Final Fortune. I think it layers really well with any deck that can play Spellseeker combo. So those Jessica decks or Jeskai decks.
Yeah.
Corval,
additionally, Obeka.
Yeah.
Obeka gets to exile the Necropotence triggers so that the cards just stay in the graveyard. So that's also really powerful.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, so Obeka definitely, if you already have an Obeka in play and a Necropotence, it's probably hard to lose the game. At that point, if you're at that point.
It's going to be hard to shove Kess off the Grixis throne. But like with Silas Rog and Obeka both coming out, Grixis has a lot of more toys to play with than just Kess now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Obeka is probably more valuable as like a grind commander, just thanks to you having so many extra turn effects for 2 mana, and having so many synergies with Breach and Necropotence, and also like you basically have a stacks piece in play that says you can't play end of turn tutors, which is like kind of insane.
Your opponents can't play end of turn ad nauses. That's the big one.
Yeah, that too. And if they do, they have to do it early on in the person's turn, which is like so mean. You know, they have, like, if you cast it on someone's upkeep, the person has to be like, all right, do I not draw a card this turn, or do I lose to Adnos?
I mean, I want to say I would be willing to sacrifice my turn, but I don't know if I would want to.
It'd be a hard choice for sure. All right, so reaching the end of our Final Fortune discussion, I just want to give you an opportunity to shill the Spell Seekers and the other stuff you're working on, Altun. Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I am part of the group, the Spell Seekers. It's me, Okami, Jesse, Hellionium, and Beowulf. We do a bunch of shenanigans and some cEDH content. We are trying to do live streams every Wednesday, but life has been hitting with Corona. So we're working around that, but we are trying to get a consistent schedule. Just fun group of guys to play with and post YouTube videos with.
Yeah, for sure. They're great. And I've made myself an unofficial staff member of the Spell Seekers. So you'll probably see me on there as often as they'll have me.
Yeah, we love having you. You make my spell snare so much better.
You make my turn 2 wins so much easier with your greedy keeps out. It's like 8 rocks in play on turn 2, and I'm just like, oh, thank you.
I don't even play 8 rocks. I play 7 artifacts in my deck. That's not me.
You had like a carpet, a Mox Diamond, and a Mana Crypt in play one game, I think.
Yeah, I just spell snare your dockside. That's all I do.
Hey, I just reanimate it then. We're fine.
I know.
No hard feelings. No hard feelings. All right. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for being part of our first episode of our little single card discussion. Yeah, cEDH cast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I hope everyone enjoys this. Thanks to, let me make sure I have the right person. Thanks to JH Hardcore for harassing me about doing some long form content where we discuss cards really pushed me over the edge, and finally we're putting some stuff out. So thanks. Have a good one. See ya.
See ya.